Over the course of the Ranveer Show, rarely have I been this excited to release a particular podcast. We've already had Devang Thapliyal on the Hindi podcast, and it was one of the biggest hits that we've released on that channel. This is Devang Thapliyal's detailed journey as a Himalayan rescue operative, as an explorer. He's seen parts of the Himalayas that very few human beings have seen. He's had experiences that you can't imagine. Be it seeing animals that aren't discovered by science yet, be it some sort of alien ish experience, be it some metaphysical experiences. This podcast is one of our richest episodes yet. And if you enjoy conversations like this, you're in for a treat on this one. Remember to follow The Ranveer Show on Spotify. We're a Spotify exclusive now, which means every episode is available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world. This is Devang Thapliyal returning on The Ranveer Show, opening up his mind, opening up about all his adventures, and giving us one of our best episodes yet. Enjoy the episode. Welcome to a special Himalayan themed, adventure themed, outdoorsy themed episode of the Ranveer Show with an outdoorsman, an adventurer, a rescue expert, and an expert of so many things that we can't even speak about on the podcast. Nothing explicit, but things that are classified. Mr. Devang Thapliyal, thank you for being on the Ranveer Show, brother.
My honor.
We had an episode with you in Hindi, extended stories of yours, how you've almost been eaten by a leopard, how you have saved lives in the Kedarnath floods, how you've explored parts of the Himalayas which people have probably not explored till that point. You've seen a lot, man. Just before this episode started rolling, you were having a conversation about people who are mountaineers or who are who are outdoorsy in their own ways. A lot of them have seen shit and they have a certain level of, I won't call it fear, but some level of trauma in their eyes. There's not that much trauma in your eyes because I feel you're one of those dudes who can switch off from his past and live in the present, and you're also learning. But if I had to ask you in all these years, what's possibly the most traumatic thing on a personal level that you've seen on your adventures?
To begin with, as you said, being an expert of rescue, I don't think I'm there yet. But yeah, this journey will continue, and I don't want to set a place where it will end. I think it has to just keep continuing. The graph should go up. So I don't know. I will be an expert, but yeah, I will definitely be better than what I am. And what I'm leaving behind is the past. And if I start to be with it, I don't think I will be better in the present that I'm holding as right now. I have seen, to answer your question specifically, I have seen a lot of traumatic experiences, and the day when I would see it, that night would be the most horrible one to go to bed, thinking about what all took place, to see as soon as I would walk off the bridge and at the back, the bridge was gone, the people who were standing on the bridge were gone.
In a flood.
They were all washed away. And then people dying in general. It's not a sight. No one voluntarily did what they suffered and wanted to be in that situation. So to see people die has been traumatic. To see things that have happened to me or the people I was working along with is very traumatic. But then I don't want to be there in the past. If I be there, it'll create a lot of problem, lot of hindrance for me in my present, and then my future is gonna get affected. So yeah, it brings tears to me as we were speaking about it. It just took me back to that specific incident where someone was dying right there and just died, just passed away, and was gone. Like there was a life there, and the life is not there anymore. So I was struggling with it for a while, and how I recovered was like I started penning down my emotions, and I would burn that paper. So once that paper is burned, I think I've released a lot of energy, just like that. I don't want that thing in my life. I'm sure I want to take good out of it and just the experience, but I don't want my head to be there in that location or create any sort of post-traumatic stress. So yeah,
And I think
moving forward.
your profession makes you prone to PTSD.
Yes.
It can make you prone to PTSD.
Yes, very much, because day in and out you are dealing at situations where either you are stuck by yourself and there is no one around you, so your mind starts to play tricks against you, and you can just hallucinate because you are high on altitude. The oxygen is, I wouldn't say it's still the same percentage of oxygen, but then because of the altitude and the pressure, the things start to mess up. Our brain is not getting the sufficient amount of oxygen as it was getting at the sea level. So because of that, hallucination happens, and you just start to assume things which are not even true. So any self-doubt that you have will get very exaggerated at high altitude. And if that happens, you are messing up with your own brain. You are creating things which are not there. You start to see things which are not even true. So after 20,000 feet, or when you're entering death zone, it's better to have a clear mindset. You should know your objective, what you're there for. And as clear you are, the better it will be for you and the entire team, the team that you're leading, or any sort of people, any person that you're evacuating. So having that clarity is very important. Else there is no point. If the clarity is not there, there's no point in going up to that particular level or taking any sort of responsibilities and defining your objectives. So yeah, it's better to step back if there is any sort of stress.
I don't think people understand how large the Himalayas are and how many incidents happen in those mountains. So, what would you actually define your job as? Like, you're a rescue expert, you're a rescue operator?
I wouldn't call myself a rescue operator, but I am an outdoor leader, so an experiential leader as well. So what we do is, there is this concept about teaching people through experiences. Most of the time it's students. Most of the time, at other times, there are people suffering from food disorders, anxiety, depressions. So when any sort of these things are coming into picture, or anyone who feels like he's having any such sort of issue, they would come on an outdoor trip, and there'll be a lot of learning that will happen. Most of the time I deal with students. That will be my expertise, I would say. But yeah, at times I have also taken people from PTSDs, anyone suffering from suicidal tendencies, to on a trips. So experiential education would mean like you are there by yourself. There'll be a lot of experience that you'll gain. In terms of, there'll be a lot of circumstances that will happen. You'll have to build up team spirits. You'll have to not just look and justify your own being over there, but for the entire team. You're not just cooking for yourself, but for the entire team. Once that thing starts coming inside your brain, your brain starts to function in a different way. What I would mean to say is, like, any sort of communication has to be clear, because it will not give you second chance. So it will give you second chance, but then you have to improve. If the communication has to be clear within the team, because the wilderness is wilderness. There is no help arriving very soon. So it's better, there should be efficiency that will develop over the period of 3-4 days, and then eventually after like 5th-6th day, the person and the entire team comes together as one unit. They start doing things within each other. There are things that are already been resolved. So you learn by experiences. That would be experiential learning, the other part of it. So that's being one of my jobs. And then I would also lead people onto the high altitude expeditions, high altitude treks. So in those trips, I am more like a trek leader who would help all these people to go up and come down safe. So my priority is not always to go up, but coming down safe is the most important thing. I always would tell my people that, it's not important what's up there, but coming down safe and letting the world know about it is what makes it important. Because most of the time when people are coming down, that's when any sort of things may just go haywire, and mayhem is created. So it's better that you should always be able to figure out okay, you have to go up, you have to come down, and my job is just to make these people safe and sound, bring them safe and sound back. Other thing, that Himalayas are huge. They are very huge. They are third most unexplored place of the world, Earth. And
What are the other two?
the Arctic and the Antarctic.
Okay.
Yeah, now because they are melting, they are not that much in area, but Himalayas are huge. It will cover around 8,000 meters, 8,000 kilometers from the top to the northeast of India, and then the altitude always plays a game. So yeah, there are a lot of passes, mountain passes. Once you are into a valley, one wrong turn and you might end up in a valley. And if you're not having basics clear about how to get out of this place, or maybe the another level is the level that we operate at. Ki you're not getting out of here safe, but you're also just being there. You are safe being there itself.
As in?
As in, you don't. I wouldn't like to come out of the mountains unless it's required. What I mean to say is, ki, okay, if I'm at standby, if I'm at a place, so I don't have to go to the market or any shop nearby to get all my essentials. I can be there, live there, do what all is required to be there and survive.
Have you done that ever? Like, have you had a situation where you had to survive in the wilderness because you're lost?
Yeah, a couple of times.
Like, what had happened?
We were lost. The backpack got washed away, so it was gone, which had compass, maps, and all other essentials. So for 2-3 days we were in the wilderness, and we were like, okay, which way we have to go? So the plan was to be executed. The plan was being made right then and there. Ki if we leave right now, we will most probably take 2 days to get out of the wilderness, and in those 2 days, it might happen that we might get lost more further and further again. So why not just pitch our tent over here? We'll send one team. We'll go forward and look, hunt around the area, and the other team will be here itself, cook, and once these people come back, so provide them all sort of food and just make them comfortable once they are back. So that line of action was being implemented. We stayed there. Half of the team was there. The rest of the team was looking for the safest exit out. And the safest exit out is you have to most probably find a water source, and then just follow the water source, see where it's going, and then head out. Or else, if there's no water source, just climb the highest peak that you see around, and then find out which way you'll have to head out. In the mountains, the problem is once you go at a higher altitude, you would feel like, okay, that place looks close, but it actually like days apart. It'll take you 2-3 days to just go inside the valleys, navigate your way, and then move out. So yeah, the most what I figured out is, for a nubile person who is stuck, to get them out, for people like us, it is very essential to be comfortable in the wild itself, in the nature itself. The nature will feed us. We have to understand, okay, what are the things which are edible and what are the things which are not edible, because one single mistake can probably take your life. You'll be paralyzed. Something can happen. Some plant you ate which was not effective in that particular altitude. So yeah, it'll just be a wrong game. So it's very important to know what are the berries that you're supposed to eat, what are the things that you're not supposed to eat, what sort of water, how the water has to be purified. So yeah, all these things are there.
Like, could you actually take us to what you eat and drink? Like, if you're actually lost, what do you end up doing? Your first instinct is to hunt an animal, hunt for fruit. What is it?
Hunting is the last resort.
Okay.
It's the last resort. We don't want to hunt anyone or anything which is not causing us harm. But if there is something that's gonna cause us harm, then in particular way the defense comes in, and either one has to live. So at times it has happened where only one has to live. So you have to take that call. Okay, it has to be you, or either that animal or predator who will live, or it will be you. If there is another human, I hope that situation never arises in wilderness when you're already down to like 5-4 men and you're fighting amongst each other. That should never happen. A team spirit is the most important thing that one should maintain up there. To answer what all one can eat, so if you are around the river, fishes will be just a luxury. And if not that as well, any sort of insect that you see, just eat it.
Have you tried that? Like, have you
everything? A snail, not a frog, but yeah.
But like, you eat it raw?
Yeah.
What does it taste like?
I don't know. You don't think about taste at that particular time when you're
just
hungry. Yeah, you just gulp it with water.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Like a pill.
Yeah. So, and if you're lucky, if you have water, most of the time water isn't there. So you just grab it
Do
and
you kill it? And then...
yeah, most of the time it depends. Like you're not thinking that deep about it. You just find an insect because it takes it takes a lot of patience for you to find an insect in a tree bark somewhere, or ants around, or any sort of insect, small, big, large. You just grab it, and the patience is almost killing you about you being hungry, something to get inside your stomach and feed you, and then get some sort of energy and move forward. So whatever you find, you just go grab and eat it without giving it second thought. Your body reaches that particular time, you're not thinking about what is right, what is wrong. You're thinking about one thing, which is survive. So at that particular time, you just whatever comes onto your hand, grab and eat, and then move forward. Look forward to, okay, how can I avoid this to happen for a longer duration of time? Because that's not a permanent place. You eventually have to get out. How long can you stay? That's one thing. So yeah,
You said you have to also purify water, but what can
I
possibly?
I like in the United States of America, or the courses which we went through, it was being told that you have to purify water. But at times, mostly in the Himalayas, we will find water, and I have never ever ended in a situation where I have to purify water. Most of the time, there are pills which we use and purify it. There was this one time, it was during the monsoons, and the entire water was muddy. There was nothing pure, and for to find pure water, we have to go. We would have to gain further altitude and go towards water and glacier. That would require a lot of effort to gain altitude. So in that particular case, what we did was we took off all our t-shirts, put the water bottle, and we filtered the water with the t-shirts. So it was still muddy, but
Still better than
yeah.
like completely dirty water.
Yeah.
I'm sure you've encountered animals. You've spoken about it in the last episode where you were very close to a leopard, and it could have easily pounced on you, eaten you, but it didn't, and you had shared eye contact with the leopard. You've also spoken about how this is possibly your most near-death experience.
Yeah, this has been one of my most near-death experience. One of those where I was not voluntarily asking to be in such a situation, because the other times I put myself in situations where anything could have gone either right or left. But at this particular time, I was not expecting a predator to be there, waiting, or maybe not. I don't know whether it was waiting for me or not. But I was just as I was passing, and I looked up. He saw me. I saw him. I think the same experience happened with him as well. He was looking into my eyes. I was looking into his eyes, and I was okay. I'm not gonna fight you because I was not having the required gears and all. That was not even my second thought. So I surrendered myself to. I considered him to be the highness, and I just surrendered myself. That was it. But I had one thing that I'm not going to look down. If I have to die, I'll see death coming close to me. I'll see me getting eaten up. So I was looking into his eyes. He kept looking into my eyes. And there was this brief silence for 8 seconds for me, which was a lifetime. Everything just went like that. Was free from time and everything around me. Nothing mattered as much as his eyes and my life, myself. The reflection that went through my head, what all my head went through, it was beyond time.
Yeah.
So a lot of things took place in my head, and yeah, I surrendered myself. Like, if you want to have me, you can have me. And he just looked down once. I turned around and I started walking, and I didn't look back. I didn't have the courage to look back. Yeah, I was walking and I was hearing my heartbeat that high, that loud enough that I could not hear my footsteps, and I was running to get out of the situation.
Yeah.
So
How do you think animals look at human beings in the Himalayas?
they fear us. They don't want. They are very shy. They won't attack unless we are attacking them. And most of the times, other times, what has happened, I encountered another animal, and we were on this turn. So there's this turn in the mountain. There's a trail which is taking a dead end turn, and I took my left, and I saw an animal. He saw me, and I was scared. He was scared.
Which animal was it?
A leopard.
Okay.
And he was with his cubs, and I had a person behind me which we were to evacuate, and there was this huge, like, we were around 7-8 people. We were to evacuate this person, and there was a leopard in front of me. I saw them, they saw me, and we both were scared. I saw it, and then I was like, oh. I skipped that heartbeat, and I'm like, no, but I cannot stop, because at the back there is this body that has to be taken down as soon as possible, or else something else will happen over here.
Like, you were evacuating someone
We were
who was
evacuating
injured.
a person who fell down at a place which was at the border of 2 states. So there was a call that was to be taken ki, okay, either I have to take this person to this particular state or that particular state. I took a decision about getting it nearest to the roadhead, to get to the roadhead. And then we got them to the roadhead. Chopper was being asked to come down, but because of the weather conditions, the helicopter couldn't land. So we just kept traveling through roads, and the roads were horrible. And I am glad that I did few courses where I was being taught to give first aid responder if something happens wrong in the wilderness, how to take care of that person. Not being a doctor, but then providing assist to get this victim to the doctor as soon as possible. So this is happening on the borders of Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. And in extreme Himalayas again, it was wilderness, lower Himalayas. Uh, we got this person out, went to the ambulance, and then from ambulance it took us quite a lot of time because people over there don't get people who are having head injuries and all sort of. So this person I was evacuating had an head injury, and took us around 4 days to get him all the way back to Bangalore. Yeah, the person the was in shock at first. Later, the body went into coma, and yeah, we wanted the chopper pickup to happen, but it was not happening because of weather. So 4 days, no sleep, nothing. But handling that part, I guess, was easy. Then handling his wife and son at the same time because they were having a breakdown. They were there on a trip, a thing that they were be looking forward for, and then something this sort of happened. To handle them emotionally and then handling the victim at the same time was a task, and I think that this has made me grow. Not just this, there have been incidents where you have to cross a pass. So most of the time, if something's going wrong at high altitude, you have to let that person come down. But happening, this situation is happening at a pass. A pass means like there's this valley and there's this another valley, and between these two valleys there's a pass, mountain pass, and you have to cross this pass. So I'm at 14,300 feet, and I have to climb 700 feet more to cross the pass and go on to the other side. Now, two of my teammates, they are having problem of HAPE, which is high altitude pulmonary edema, high altitude cerebral edema. When a person has cerebral edema, within a matter of few hours, if the precautions and right steps are not being taken, a person may die, or the pulmonary edema as well. Now, having two cases at the same time, there were two options: either to bring this person down, like bringing down is very important, but to bring them down, either I have to bring them down the same route that we climbed, and that took us 7 days. In order to bring them down, it'll take us 4 days, or maybe even less, but still one day at least. If I would have made that person cross the pass, we would cross the pass, there'll be a 700 feet gain, but we'll cross the pass and there'll be a certain dip of altitude, and then the person will come down to a significant altitude when that person will feel okay. So I took the call of, with the amount of people that were there to help me out, we took a call, okay, we'll take this person beyond the pass at that specific point. So 700 feet more we climbed, provided supplement oxygen, which is very important, and few other drugs to make them cross the pass and made them land onto the other side. And as soon as they came down, they were all fine. At one point, they were not even able to walk, not even able to take one step ahead. So having a backpack load and also having that person at the back, it was like you take one step, and physically it was getting really, like, I haven't trained body weight and all, never in my life, but I don't know how I got all thought of that energy. Okay, this person has to live, or else it's coming down. Like, it's my job to bring these people down. It's a promise that I made at the base camp. So having that person at the back and then crossing the pass. So that was hell lot of load. As soon as they crossed the pass, went down the altitude, they were all fine, which is like a wonders that happens at altitude. If you're going up, your health will start to just go worse and worse and worse. But as soon as you go down the altitude, everything will be super fine. So yeah, all the horrible experience that have happened over there and how huge the Himalayas are.
Coming back to the Himalayas, about the wilderness, what is something that an average person will never understand unless they've experienced it? Like, what has the wilderness taught you as a man?
To improvise, there's no plan. You plan something in life or in wilderness, it doesn't work out, what do? You don't get shattered. You make plan B or maybe plan C. If you have already made it, good. If not, you improvise right then and there, whatever you have right there at that particular time, at present moment, whatever you have, you use all those things around you. You
Like
become
nature? You mean
yes,
trees?
nature, trees. So when this thing happened, the organization that I was working for, uh, it's called India Hikes. So they were having a stretcher. Now stretcher it's not possible to take a person having a head injury, because in the mountains it's going to be up and down, up and down, up and down most of the times. And we had to make a stretcher right then and there. So what we did, we put a chair, we cut two branches of the tree and we put them beneath the chair. So the person was being made to sit, and then a head support was being provided, and then he was being tied along. So that's how he was being moved from that point. If I would have taken him at the stretcher, the head will go up and down, which is not recommended. Head should not have any sort of movement. So this was improvisation at that point, right then and there. So yeah, there are improvisations like these, and the other improvisation when we got lost, if we would have continued, we were out of food, and in order to manifest food from the wild, you need to have patience, a lot of patience, because it's not going to come to you. You'll have to most probably to just light up the fire. If you're not having a lighter, it'll take you an hour or two easily to look for whatever you have to eat. It'll take you time. So if you're tired and then you are looking for food, no, that's not going to happen. So you have to plan, and never it'll happen that the plan will work. So you improvise right then and there. And it's been one of those things that I have learned from the wilderness. Okay, the plan's not going to work, whatever you're planning for your life or anything, you have to improvise quite a lot. And if you are there, you're spontaneous enough to take decisions. And this is another thing about making a decision. Now, decision at the time of things going haywire, chaos created, there is no right decision, no wrong decision. You have to just commission a decision. You don't have to omit anything. Just make a decision and go forward about it. Just follow the process, your heart, whatever your training you have been through, or whatever circumstances are, whatever you can analyze with the situation, just make a decision and just enact, rather than being at a shock to figure out what has to be done. So the more you the first time it happened to me, I did go on to a state, okay, what next? What do I have to do? There was this time in terms of improvisation, it was cold, the snow falling all around, and this person comes to me and he's like, okay, I'm going to lose my finger. I'm not able to move my finger, and he was wearing 2 gloves already. So I held his hand and put it around my groin area because it being warm, or my underarms, because I was also feeling cold. I was not being a superhuman around there.
Where was this?
This was happening in a peak called Chandrashila, but around the time when it was really cold. So he was like, I'm not feeling my fingers, and what has to be done? So that was one of the improvisations. Okay, just put it right here. Like this has to, your finger has to. I don't want once we go back, you don't have a finger, or it has to be amputated. So that was the decision being taken, and warmth and all, his finger was fine. So in terms along the improvisation, that's how things work. Yeah, whatever you have around, use it right then and there, and just get out of the situation safe.
Does the wilderness completely change at night?
Oh yes, things get magnified.
Like what do you
Sounds are way too much. Cold is something to be dealt with the altitude. And if we are talking about the Himalayan wilderness, it's recommended most of the time that you better stay put. No movement has to be made unless you are the party who is making an evacuation or you are searching for anything which is lost. Unless you are not trained, it's better you stay put. Once the sun made his set, be at a place stationary. Don't make movements around.
It's because of wild animals?
Wild animals will definitely come. Predators will definitely come out in the night. But the trails or the mountains which are trekked quite a lot, they are very shy animals, as I told you before. They will not come out. They can sense us, feel us, see us from a distance, and they will not bother us. But if you are making a movement during the night which they are not expecting, then it might happen. As I was telling you, when the evacuation that we were making, and then there were leopards with cubs all right in front of us. They were shocked. I was shocked. And if they could have attacked me, things would have gone wrong. But I was having this motive, okay, we have to move. And that motive was good enough for them to sense through my eyes, okay, he has a motive and he is going to do something that he has to accomplish. So they just moved out of the way.
What are the dangerous wild animals in the Himalayas? Like at night, there's leopards, there's tigers.
Yeah, there are leopards, there are snow leopards. Mostly there are leopards, and there are a lot of wild cats. When I say wild cats, it covers most of the things. I haven't seen any tiger in the Himalayan regions.
But you've heard of them?
I have never heard of them.
Okay.
We call them Bagheera, which will cover the entire wild cats. But I've seen cougar, something sort of a cougar, but not a tiger up in the mountains. Not a tiger. Leopards quite a lot. There are a lot of leopards in different shades. The most dangerous one would be bear. So yeah, bear. It's better you shouldn't encounter a bear.
It's much more dangerous than a leopard.
Yeah.
Why? Because bears are aggressive?
They are.
Okay. Have you encountered one closely ever?
Not closely, never closely. I wish not to encounter one anytime.
But you've seen a bear injury and all.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Bear injuries and bear from a distance. In another mountain, he was in a green patch and he was making his movement, so I could easily figure out that huge animal crossing.
Hmm.
Yeah, and I've met people who have had a bear attack them. So yeah, it's
What have they
horrible.
said about it?
They were freaked out. They had nothing to say. They was just wishing, because it was in an urban place, Rishikesh, and being in the outskirts of Rishikesh, they were just walking their way back around the times of lockdown when people were not getting out, and the animals were entering.
Yeah, Rishikesh is next to Rajaji National Park. right?
Yes, yes,
So maybe
around
the
the-
bear came out of Rajaji
Yes,
National
yes,
Park
yes.
into main Rishikesh.
Not into main Rishikesh, but outskirts of Rishikesh.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so she was going back home and the bear attacked, and she had a lot of like she was carrying her food, so that fell. A noise was being made. People came out, and then the bear just left.
The bear attacked her for the food?
I maybe, yeah,
Wow.
they can smell really good.
But is there a human bear conflict? Like, do they actually come into human territory and like,
No.
not in Himalayas?
Yeah, in the Himalayas, they would know. Like at times, I have heard the team that I was leading. So one person went out in pee, and he was telling me, okay, there was a bear who came around that area. So what we do, there's this thing about not, making mess of the place that you are camping at. So there are some camping etiquettes. So what we do is, like, whatever waste that's been organic waste that's been produced, we'll just make a pit and just keep
Bury
it there, bury it. So then later it can turn out to be manure, fertilizer. Like it can be there. It would not harm the meadow around. So it came for that, and it was digging it out. And
Wow.
so he went to pee and he saw it. He pulled his torch towards him, red eyes and all. So he told the guide. The guide later told me, and then it was very important for these people to know. And I have told them every night before going to our respective tents. I will tell them that you are not getting out alone. That's the thumb rule. You are always taking your buddy along with you.
So mainly because of bears and leopards.
Yes, and anything else can happen. Like the toilet tent is not right next to you. As in our houses, it will be at a distance. So you'll have to walk your way, and while you're walking in the dark, what if you twist your feet, and then you need to have someone. There's always the buddy culture has to be followed. You always need to have a buddy along with you for good efficiency and not things to go out of your hands. It has to be restricted, controlled before it does.
Have you, I'm asking you this because you've gone into deep parts of the Himalayas. Have you ever seen an animal which you feel hasn't been discovered by science yet?
I'm sure it's been discovered. I just haven't looked into it because the way it looks, I don't know what's it called, or I haven't seen it over the internet yet. And I have discussed it with my friends who are into wildlife photography, and they have a good albums of all the wildlife species that they've discovered. There was this one time, just imagine a crocodile. Now that crocodile, turn it and make it smaller, like half of its size, and now put that crocodile on a tree.
Oh wow.
So yeah, that was once when I saw it.
Like-
I was like, what is it? I don't know.
Large enough to harm you, but
Not large enough to harm me. But yes, I was definitely scared. Ki, okay, if it jumps down and then he bites my toe or my hands, then it's gonna be a problem. So I was keeping distance because I have no idea what it is.
wow. And you saw this deep in the Himalayas somewhere.
Yeah.
What else do you see deep in the Himalayas, dude?
Most of the time, it's plants, trees, not specifically trees, but these herbs around which you haven't seen before. Some smell which is like very intoxicating.
Really? Like a
Yeah.
perfume?
Yeah,
Wow.
and it's all over. And when you smell it for way too long, you kind of feel dizzy. At times, I felt rejuvenated with all these smells. We were walking in this jungle, and like there's just trees around. Like these bushes are as tall as us. So we were craving our way, piercing through in. 6 of us piercing through in, making our way, cut. And as we were cutting these stems, a toxic thing was being released, which was like sticky, very sticky. So it came to our backpacks, and then in those backpacks, the leaves started sticking, and the fumes which were coming out of it, it was very toxic, and it smelled like horrible. And just after that, as soon as we crossed it, we were just wondering, what did this happen? Are we supposed to touch this or not? We touched it anyway because it was already in our hands as we were cutting it through and going piercing it. After that, we entered this another territory where this was green and white. Now the one that came later was green and red, which was, oh my god, it was so good, like perfume. It felt so good. I was like, I need to contain this and take it home. It was really relaxing. Yeah. So yeah,
What did
we
it
first
smell like?
cleaned
Like, can you describe the smell?
It was a little bit of lavender
Okay.
mixed with rose, but times 50.
Got it. Very intense.
Very intense. Yeah, very strong. Yeah, and being in the middle of it. Yeah.
Have you met any yogis in deep Himalayas?
Most of the time yes, I have. And yeah, they are like, it's good to talk to them, like the theories they have about life and what they're doing out there. So they're constantly on a move. They wouldn't stay there, or most of the time they'll have a kutia, like a hut, and whoever was gonna come on a trek, they'll bring foods and all for them. So that's how they survive.
But this is again deep in the wilderness.
I would say in the wilderness, not really deep in the wilderness, but yes, in the wilderness.
Away from civilization.
Yes, very away from the civilization.
How away? Like 100 kilometers, 200?
From the civilization, 50 kilometers away from the civilization, which will take you around 3 days to get there.
Because 50 kilometers in the Himalayas is you trekking up.
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. Up and down, going round and round. So yeah, it's not straight, never.
What do they eat?
So most of the time, like that's what I'm telling you, most of the people who are coming up, they'll bring food. So they go down, they bring enough ration for them, and they keep it there.
Got it. Like dal chawal or...
Yes.
Okay.
Dal chawal.
And like, what are the conversations with them? Like who are these people? Because you also hear of these immortal rishis who live in the Himalayas. You know, they've learned how to sustain themselves on sunlight. Have you heard these stories?
Yes.
Like, I read a lot about these stories. We'll come to that, but about these guys?
They won't talk.
Who?
These people.
The immortal ones?
Yeah. No. The one that I'm talking about,
Okay.
he wouldn't talk. There was this other one that I met. He was living in a barren tin shade, like he made a hut for himself, and he had a lot of books, and he was constantly talking about educating the youth and questioning why environmental science is not as important as mathematics and physics and science, other sciences. So yeah, that was his thing. And
Was he speaking English or Hindi?
He was speaking English.
Oh, wow.
Yes.
That means he's probably grown up in a city, maybe town
Yes.
at least.
Yes. He
Indian?
definitely had.
Indian?
Yes, Indian. Yeah. He definitely had good knowledge about, and his plan was to later get down to the cities and then start teaching kids.
So why was he up there? To meditate?
Most probably. Like we asked him, and he was like, as right now, it's not my time to be down. My time is to be up here, and that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
That's what people don't understand, you know, when you go into very, very deep places of meditation, which takes you years. It's taken me like 5 years to go even a little deeper than the average person. I'm not far at all. I'm probably, if there are 10 levels, most regular meditators are at level 10. I'm at level 9.5. I'm not even at level 9. And you want to get to level 1 of like meditation. But even at this level 9.5, in some deep meditations, I feel like I'm accessing some external knowledge, which I then use in videos, I use in podcasts. Maybe something sitting in my head that comes out in a podcast, comes out when I'm writing. I'm like, where the did that come from? But when I have spoken to people who know yogis who've gone up there, a lot of them are at these early stages, 9, 8, 7. The ones who are at even higher stages, 5, 4, 3, they are even deeper in the Himalayas. Probably at such deep places that you may not be able to find them. And the ones even higher than that are maybe those immortal legends that we hear of.
Yeah.
You can't deny, you know, stories like that. Like, I mean, lots of people limit their own minds and their own imagination and their own possibilities because science has improved it.
Yeah.
But science has a long way to go. And actually, I mean, know that you're someone who believes in the same concept, that science does have a long way to go yet.
Yeah.
Without denying science, we're scientific guys, but there's so much left to discover.
Yes, very much. In Himalayas, way too much.
Like, do you have any experiences like that?
Okay, so This was happening around the time of monsoons. We climbed a pass and now we were supposed to descend down. We were supposed to go down to a place called Shila Samundar, which in English means an ocean of rocks. So all you see is rocks. So we are around 15,800 feet and all. We are coming down. We have to go down and then climb again. And around that time, like as I told you, you can see very far away once you are at a high altitude. Once you are at that place, the pinnacle of the areas around, you can see at a very far place. Now from that place, I saw 5 circles down in a ground which is huge. And imagine a tent there would feel like a dot. And now there are 5 circles made. There's a 6th circle where it looks like it's been made in a way which is made by humans. The way it was being made, as we could see from that distance. Now, if I would have gone down the entire way up till that point, it would be like a stadium. That huge it'd be.
Wow.
So I was in my head, I was having this thing. Okay, maybe a spaceship landed out here. I was telling my friends, okay, maybe this has happened, and we were having our own theories. Maybe it was because of the glaciers, how glaciers were receding. Glacier came and then glaciers started to settle down in a way that the water started going down. And then that's how the circle was made.
But from the geometric shape, you're saying?
Yes. Spherical, but that human-made was circular.
God.
The other ones were not exactly circle, but yeah, coming very close to it. But then all of them was spherical.
Have you heard of crop circles? It's like an alien thing. They say that lots of fields in America, basically... There was this whole conspiracy theory that alien ships come create crop circles in the crops. There's a movie about it, Signs.
Yes.
Later, people have come out and said, no, we used to create crop circles. And
all. I've heard about it, and I was telling you ki maybe this, as we were communicating among each other, this came that maybe this was because of the people who come they hunt for the herbs. I was telling you in the other podcast that there are a lot of herbs which are having a lot of advantages for human species and how it can be developed into something which can cure, I don't know what all sort of disease. So
basically, they're smuggled into China. Herbs from the Himalayas are taken, smuggled into China, where probably research is done on them.
Yes. Or maybe the Indian government by itself are carrying some sort of research, but then the smuggling is definitely happening. Because every year I'll hear about, okay, this amount of this particular drug or herb was being, seized by the police or the officials, ITVP or CISF. SSB. So, yeah, I've heard about this. So, maybe it was these people who were setting up the tents out there in that particular field, clearing the field up and going up, hunting, coming down, looking for the herbs, coming down back again. So, maybe it was them. But then it doesn't justify because the fields were really big. Those grounds which were being made, which was very big. And that's why it was not justified. Because I'm telling you, one tent in that entire place was looking like a dot. I have a picture of it, and the more I zoom, the more I get thoughts about what was it.
But speak to me more about this alien thing, dude, because again, you're someone who's gone deep. I'm saying that for the 10th time in this podcast, but people need to understand, the viewers and listeners need to understand what Devang has seen with his own eyes. There's lots of theories that, say that Mount Kailash is some sort of a spaceship base. There are theories that say that Himalayas are so unexplored that there are definitely aliens in the deep wilderness. It's sort of a base for aliens. Do you believe things like that?
I would believe things that I've seen from my own eyes. So this comes closer to that theory. But living with the Javans in the Tibetan section. So as I told you, like this is a landmass which is the roof of the world known as Tibet. There's another landmass, and this is taking like 500,000 years. This landmass is coming. It will collide this, and that's how the Himalayas were being made because of the pressure and the tectonic movements.
Yeah.
So these are greater Himalayas, these are lower Himalayas, and beyond this is Trans-Himalayan ranges. Now in Trans-Himalayan ranges, it was Tibet, as we know of it, and there are a lot of gompas and monasteries around that place, which are very old, very, very, very old. So, at times they have been sighting of any unidentified objects. Now, India would claim that this was some sort of Chinese thing coming into our space zone and going back. And on that particular side, they would have seen it and they would claim that it was yours. So, that's there. And that takes all the doubts. So, but there have been UFOs being sighted along the Trans-Himalayan ranges.
Do you have any idea about the shape of the UFOs?
Most of the time, as what I've heard people tell me, it's been circular.
Wow, shit.
Yeah. And I clearly remember this conversation with one of the Jawans, and he was like, I had it first with the Jawan, then I later spoke to the officer who was posted there, the commander in chief. And he was like, maybe it's because of the altitude. He hasn't seen it, so but he too believes in these things, but he hasn't seen one by himself. So the thing is, because you are at the altitude, as I told you, your mind starts to play games. There are places where you don't want to be. There you are lonely by yourself. There is constant day and night happening, and you are guarding. So because of the altitude again, your mind starts to play tricks with you. Hallucinations is very common up in the mountains. It's very common. So they are things that you might have not seen, but it might have already happened.
You had any hallucinations?
Yes, it happened to me after 16,000, 17,000 feet, somewhere around along the same lines, and we were doing load ferry. So load ferry is something, okay, you have to set up a base camp at higher altitude. Right now we are at 12,000 feet, we have to go to 16,000 feet. So we'll be taking load day 1, day 2, day 3, day 4. So slowly we are taking load to the other campsite, which is high up the altitude. So the first day when we went in there, we carried a lot of load, and now once we arrived there is a lot of snow there. Now we cannot just pitch tent on the top of snow. We have to beat down the snow, make it into a hard crux of ice, and then once it's a stable ground, hard ground, then we'll pitch up our tents. So we were jumping over the snow to make it hard, beating the snow, we call it. We were beating it, and then there was ice all around. Now, when we were doing this activity, because of exertion, I was getting breathless, and I felt that it was just me, happening to just me. But then I was looking people around, and it was happening to everyone. And then what we did, we were not able to stand up. So we came together, 3 of us. We started beating the snow together again. And while we were beating it, like, okay, what's happening? Something's wrong. So now we have already handled cases before this. We have handled cases the people who were suffering from higher to cerebral edema, higher to pulmonary edema. And we knew this is not cerebral edema, because if it's getting onto that zone, by the time you'll go down, you're gone, your body's gone. So we know this is some sort of mountain sickness. The primary stage is acute mountain sickness. Now, it was not only happening to me, it was happening to others as well. And we rested on a rock. I sat down, I had water, I looked up, and I was close to the clouds. It was blue sky, and then white clouds were there. These white clouds were moving. I could see a dragon right there in front of me who was coming close to me. I'm like, what? And I was like, okay, I know this is not true. I know what you're doing with me. Don't stop doing this. Because I have studied all these things, and I know how my brain is, acting against me, playing against me, all these games.
Then just settles down after some time.
Yeah, you just spend time there, you let your heart rate come down, so it slowly settles down.
There's a burning question in my head about those immortal yogis. So I want to talk a little bit about that. Have you heard stories of, yogis who are deep in the Himalayas, who are just completely away from civilization?
Yeah, who are meditating, and they have left their bodies, so their bodies are still there, but the soul is traveling. So they can travel, but the body is in some cave, someplace.
Like astral travel, it's called.
Yes.
Where there is actually meditation science behind this, spiritual sciences that say that you're supposed to slow down your heartbeat to such a point where your entire heartbeat stops, your blood circulation stops, but at the same time, you're not... See, what do we get life from? We get life from air and food. So when your heart stops, you lose your requirement of air. And for food, you're able to get it from solar energy, sort of like photosynthesis. So, like how fireflies work? So fireflies have photoluminescent parts of their body. That's why they put out light. Even human beings have a part of your brain, I think, that is photoluminescent.
Okay.
Inside your head. I read an article about this. I forgot what the exact part is. But there is something that's photoluminescent inside your body. And there's also, along with photoluminescence, there's an ability to, I think it's like a very small version of photosynthesis. In the same way that plants use sunlight to create sugars within the plant, the human body is capable of that. So there have been records of where we met, Auroville. There is someone who's a breatharian, I think it's called, who just
breathes, and he is living on that.
He's never eaten in like years now.
For years now, yes.
Yeah. So, and there's also something called stigmatists all over the world who bleed on, I think, just before Easter, on Good Friday, they start bleeding.
Okay.
Like, look it up, stigmata, it's called. But even a lot of stigmatists are actually breatharians. At least they have been traditionally.
Okay.
You read about all this in spiritual books, man. This is the science that science has to discover. There are processes in the body that are still being discovered. Like my cousin, I'm from a family of doctors, and my first cousin, who's like my real brother, he has told me how much medicine has just advanced in 25 years. Compared to the thing his dad was studying, he's studying some other stuff.
Differently.
So even in 25 years, we've had so many new discoveries, so many advancements. Medicine's like rapidly advancing.
Yeah.
So science is yet to discover the mysteries of the human body. And my sister, like my sibling is a doctor. I asked her the same question that, do you think they're still going to discover a lot about the body? She's like, the body is so complex. We probably don't even know what we don't know about the body. There's so much left to discover. Which is why I talk about those immortal yogis who probably are creating food in their own bodies through photosynthesis, who probably are breatharians like that guy in Auroville, who I hope to get on the podcast at some point. I'd love that conversation.
Yeah.
Have you met that guy?
No.
No. Okay, maybe the next time we're in Auroville together, we'll go meet him. But have you heard anything else about these immortal yogis?
I once had a teammate in my team I was leading to Brahmatal, and he was mentioning about it that there are a lot of centers where these yogis would stay in the deep Himalayas, and since then I have been hunting around, but I haven't seen one. The chances are for these yogis to be around Uttarakhand and Himalayas, because I know it's very unexplored, very, very unexplored. And why specifically these two states? Because there are a lot of temples around here. Like, I would just go in the wilderness, kuch nahi hai, there's nothing that you would see for kilometers and kilometers, but there'll be a temple somewhere. How did that temple get there? Or how was that stone structure made? So that is a click.
Yeah.
No, and then the same goes for Himachal Pradesh. I haven't seen much of these in the states of Jammu and Kashmir. Haven't seen it in Arunachal Pradesh, neither Sikkim, but maybe Nepal it's there. I haven't explored Nepal as much as I've explored the Himalayan ranges of India. But in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh, they are always, I don't know how, there'll be a peak and there'll be a man-made structure which probably looks like a temple erected there. So yeah, that remains mystery for me for sure.
I mean, I've not really gone on deep treks. Probably the longest trek I've gone on is a 6-hour trek. Okay, but what I've heard is that when you go into the wilderness, there are certain spots where you feel a huge amount of energy. So even recently, we didn't go in the wilderness. We went to a place called Jibbi. Upwards from Jibbi, there's a small kind of touristy peak. Again, not too many people there, but it is a peak, sort of. You have to trek up to it. It's a very commercial trek. But even at the top of that mountain, I meditated for like maybe 30 seconds. And I felt some very different kind of energy. Right from the time you kind of reach near the summit of that mountain, you're like, oh, where am I? So I can't imagine the massive pockets of energy you feel in the wilderness. Do you actually feel some very overwhelming energy?
I, at times, a lot of times actually, I just detach myself from everything. I think I still have to figure out what's the definition of meditation, but for me, as what I have witnessed, is that state of mind where I'm free from everything. Most of the time, it happens to me when I'm on a run, on a long run, and after certain kilometers, there arrives a state of trance where I am detached from everything. Everything. It's just blank, and I'm enjoying what I'm doing. I'm so much indulged in it. It also happens when I'm doing rock climbing. So one move, and if you are not taking that move properly, you will just have a fall. So I'm so much inside of it that I can feel the rock and my breath and how deep breath I'm taking, and I'm just at the moment right there. And yeah, this has happened quite a lot while I'm trekking as well. At a lot of places, some places which are just hard to describe. Most of the time, it's the summit of any peak to be at that point where you can see a good 360-degree angle, eagle's eye view of the entire region. And then there are times it's valleys where there's influence. Like Lord Shiva has a lot of influence around the Himalayas. That's one thing. Because
Explain this. Explain this for someone who doesn't know what Lord Shiva is.
so Lord Shiva has, according to the texts or the stories that we have heard, there are a lot of temples of Lord Shiva in the Himalayas.
Also, the feminine aspect of Lord Shiva, which is the Mata.
Yes, and all the versions of Parvati, I would say. So there are peaks which are named after his trident. There's this peak that I have on the tattoo that I have. It's called Trishul, the trident, and just beside it there's another peak known as Nanda Ghunti, which resembles Ma Parvati because Trishul, like they have to stick together. So that's how people have named it. And then there are temples, a lot of temples, whether you consider the dhams, Kedarnath being one of them. Then there are Madhyameshwar. There are a lot of these temples, 5 temples, which are aligned one by one into the deep wilderness. And people do go and trek there. Like these treks they do in 2 days because of their how devoted they are and how much they worship Lord Shiva. So yes, that there's this vibe of Lord Shiva around, and how marijuana has been treated. It's been looked up as like it's the prasad, and yeah, there's this different energy of a valley where it's grown and not commercialized. That's the part I like the most, where it's not commercialized or being made just to be sold and let the income flow in. No, it's not like that. It's mostly being used in local cuisine, but yes, it's definitely been taken as the other forms of drugs like
Smoking it. or
like
whatever.
smoking marijuana. So yeah, it's there, but then it's just not commercialized. So in these valleys where you just see one marijuana tree, like plants all in the valley, and you just feel sort of different. Like it's just a different vibe. And then there's temple of Shiva, there's a waterfall around there, and there's not just waterfall. You look at one, and then instantly you can see like 10 others around the valley.
Wow.
So yeah, but then this is deep in the wilderness, and I've heard stories that people who live there, they have been seen once, and then they are seen like after 5 years, 7 years. So
Why is
yeah.
that? What do you think?
I am sure they just get inside the wilderness and they live by themselves, meditate or do something. I haven't encountered anyone yet, but I've heard these things coming from the people. And then there's this massive thing about Nanda Devi. Nanda Devi being one of the, it's a mountain which is again a goddess to the people of Uttarakhand and all around, like the people from the north. And it stands isolated, like it's standing alone. Now, why I'm talking about that is because it's so much unexplored because of a lot of political reasons as well and the things that have happened around in there. So, in order to go to the base, you have to just trek for like maybe 10 12 days, and there'll be a lot of valleys interconnecting. So, in those valleys, I'm sure there'll be a lot of things like these which are happening if one has to go.
Secrets.
Yes. Like political thing is definitely there, and the chaos that happened around the time of 1965.
Like this is all those nuclear testing
Yes,
and all,
yes.
apparently.
Yeah, exactly.
So basically, there's like modern day secrets like the so-called nuclear testing that happens, and then there's ancient secrets of the Himalayas, which we may not even ever discover.
Yeah.
It's just so vast. I've heard stories about like treasure being hidden, by kings who've like ruled in the northern states. They've hidden treasure in like the caves and valleys of the Himalayas. Do you believe that can be possible?
So there's this lake called Roopkund. Let me tell you this and it will answer your question. So this Roopkund lake is famous because there are skeletons there and still there at that particular altitude. So when this lake it melts, you can easily spot human skeletons there, but the bone size is much larger than the humans around this era. So definitely they are way old. The time hasn't been justified yet. People who have taken all these specimens and they've tested it out, some would say it's somewhere around the 13th century. Some would say it's way beyond than that. So what the locals have told me that okay, there was this king who was on a move and he had some sort of a argument with his wife and all, and some wife said, okay, you are not supposed to go, please stay back. But he was stubborn about it, that he has to go hunt for this treasure or something that was beyond the passes that were about to come. And then he got stuck in this hailstorm, and the entire Paltan, the entire troop died. And as they died in this valley which was round in shape. And then the snow came, snow melts, snow came, snow melts. With this constant process happening over the year, the bodies have kind of come down to the lake, and it's still there at that particular altitude. So I would not just deny the fact that it's not there. It's just that the snowfall is so constant that if anything is there, it just goes down and down and down, as like this. The device that was being supposed to be installed at Nanda Devi and Nandkot. So they did install one at Nandkot, the other one at Nanda Devi didn't get installed. That's another story. But the one that got installed at Nandkot, that device later on, after 1 year, when the team went to see how's the device doing, that device, they couldn't find the device. Over the walkie-talkie, it was spoken, okay, the device not here. They were shocked again. But they found out that the device has penetrated down. It went down. So the same sort of thing must have happened in the Himalayas as well. I don't know how deep inside it is, because there's so much of snow which later turns into crevasses, and there are tunnels inside of it, and things like that.
No one even knows what's hidden there.
Yeah, because it's just hidden. If there's only way in, way out cannot be justified.
In your Hindi episode, which I loved, and you all should check it out. If you think this is crazy, you all should hear the intensity of that episode. We spoke about death so much, and how death selects some people and it just doesn't select some people. And death has constantly not selected you, you know. It's probably for a reason. And the same way, there are certain things that are always meant to be hidden. It's not meant to be found. Maybe certain animals that are not meant to be found. Maybe there's a Yeti out there in the Himalayas.
Out there for sure, yeah.
That's not meant to be found.
Yeah.
Or is there? Have you heard any local stories of the Yeti?
I have been doing my own research about Yetis. Like, it has given me an environment that I am fortunate enough to work in the Himalayas, go to penetrate down to the regions where not many get to witness the beauty, the charm, and the things that come along with it. I'm talking about the things which are not comfortable zone. So, being fortunate enough to explore all this in and out, and I haven't ever encountered a Yeti myself. I have never seen a Yeti. But the Himalayas are so unexplored. Not just the lower Himalayas, they are unexplored anyway, but then there's civilization there. So in order to go from one civilization to the other, people might just penetrate, but they'll find a lot of wildlife and all, and still it's very unexplored. But the greater Himalayas, where after one time the death zone starts, you cannot live there. You can go up and come down.
As in, the altitude is so high that you'll die there.
Yes. You either have to supplement oxygen, and that oxygen should be there for you to explore that entire territory for like 10 years or maybe more. That amount of oxygen you have to carry to scale the entire region, which is not possible in any of the ways. And with that, the territory in itself, let's just draw a circle, okay? And I tell you, okay, you have to get to the center of the circle. What you do, you'll draw a straight line or maybe a zigzag line, and you'll get to the circle. So you draw that black colored line to get to the center. Now, if I turn this circle, this entire sheet of paper, into a cone, that will look like a route for you to go from the bottom to the top. Think about the entire region. That is just one peak now. And now, in such ways, there are many peaks. When these massive peaks come together, they make valleys. There's one peak over here, there's one peak over here. Now this is a valley, and this valley can get penetrated to I don't know how many kilometers down the line. So it's very unexplored. Even if you take a chopper, flying it at that lower levels, it's gonna be tough for anyone. So I will not deny the possibility of Yeti being there, and safeguarding, as you mentioned, safeguarding the entire Himalayan ranges.
But safeguarding from what?
Safeguarding from the destruction in a way which is coming as a construction.
Like dams or roads?
Yes.
Because a lot of nature gets harmed when dams, roads are created.
Yes, quite a lot, because these all things, Himalayas are the youngest mountain range. They're so young that they're still growing. And if you make any sort of construction in these particular places, it has to sustain. If it's not sustaining, it's gonna come down and it's gonna bring down a lot of things along with it. Just giving you an example, just recently I was at this peak called Pangarchula, and from there, along when we were hiking up to that peak, we could see the damage done to a dam far away. In order to get there, it will take us 2 days from the point we were watching it. Now, and that too when we are walking at a very good speed, like considering all of us to be really good hikers, or else it will take even longer. Now, when we were watching the dam probably looked like a small, tiny thing, just like my finger, as this much in that particular distance. And we could also see the glacier that was there. So that glacier got busted. It came down, and when it came down, it brought a lot of water, lot of everything that came along with it. It just got washed away, trees, mud, everything, and it hit that dam in such a way that the dam got washed away. And the water that came along with it, it was like, this is a valley. Just consider it in certain point that this is the valley, V-shaped valley, and there's this river flowing, okay, on that point where these two lines are matching. Now the water at that particular time was this much, that this was not a V, it was a U. The water was flowing up till this level. So that was the amount of water flowing, and how much of life it would have taken the people who were working across along the lines of the shores of the river. So the construction is coming up. I don't know, people would deny global warming, but the temperature is going up and the glaciers are not sustaining. I was shocked to be at one of the places where the glaciers, so in order to go from one mountain to the other, there's this glacier in between, which means like this is a valley, but then there's a huge amount of ice, snow, which is there, turned into ice, and we can easily traverse from one point to the other. Now, I was shocked. I was at this particular point. There was a glacier here. This glacier has receded up till here. So what we had to do, we have to go all the way down, cross the river, and then come up, which took us like 2 days more to do this entire thing. Go down the mountain entirely, cross, and then come up. When in my year when I first did it, 2016, 17, and this is what, like 3 years mein itna sab kuch ho gaya. So that's the amount of how glaciers have receded, going back and back. And that's the amount of water which will be required. Ganga is feeding people across India.
Just want to highlight one thing about these constructions that happen in Uttarakhand and Himachal Pradesh. Everyone knows that I think these two states produce the most electricity for India, and they supply to other states. So we actually talk to the locals there. They hate the fact that there's so many dams, so many hydropower plants, because to get hydropower, which is power you get from rivers, power you get from falling water bodies, you have to construct dams. When you construct dams, so much of the environment gets damaged. And we're living in an age where other countries are using solar power. But India's still stuck on hydropower. And the logic behind that is there's a lot of black money that's converted to white when constructions happen.
I'm sure.
And there's a lot of people, not just the government officials. There's a lot of maybe officers, maybe capitalists, businessmen, construction people, builders who make a lot of that money along the way. So I remember being with our beautiful driver in Himachal Pradesh. His name was Salim. He was telling us locals just don't want another dam there because they've seen all the damages done. They've seen how nature has been affected. They've seen most of all natural calamities, floods, changes in temperature, all these problems. Like, you're damaging nature so much, obviously nature is going to lash back. It's how physics works.
Forest fire.
Yeah,
recently there was a lot of forest fire in entire Uttarakhand, and I was having a heartache to see all of that happen. And it was not a pleasant sight at all. I was crying within, why is this happening?
It's greed and greed for money that's making all this happen. I mean, the Himalayas, because they're so massive, they also must be getting so much sunlight. You can easily construct solar power plants, even though it's expensive. It's a much more expensive.
Yeah, because to carry all the equipment up till that particular altitude, rather than putting it somewhere across the south line. But in the Himalayas, it will definitely be much harder, much stronger. We have this thing, like in the mountains, once we go high up the altitude, we are feeling cold. But at the same time, the sun is so hard, it's so harsh on your body because you have already gained the altitude. So that heat is coming straight away. The UV rays are much stronger. and it burns you like anything.
I mean, the world has to move to using solar power rather
Yes,
than
yes.
hydropower. There's too much damage that
Sustainable.
hydropower causes. It's not that it's pollution free or something. Lot of shit happens to the land, to the little animals, little big animals, and therefore also the human beings living.
Their houses, their homes are all gone.
Yeah.
And when it's getting constructed, that's the time where most of the chaos happens. It's all
They
muddy,
use
the streets.
explosions to
Yes.
construct it and all.
Yes.
So it's
It
very
was-
dark.
It was a very horrible sight. I remember coming down from Sankri, and recently I visited. So now the work is almost done. But I saw more than 1,000 trees chopped down like anything. Like just chopped down like anything. We don't talk about it, but they are living beings. I was being taught in my school that humans, animals, and trees, they are living beings.
Yeah.
And
You know, that's my hope that this generation that's running the world right now, they're going to die out in like 10, 20 years. And the world is going to be run by our generation. 80s born kids, 90s born kids, 2000s born kids who are much more environmentally conscious, who love this planet. And rather than thinking about going and occupying Mars, we'll first take care of what we are given. Let's move on to the Twitterverse section.
okay, what is that?
Which is just quick questions from the fans.
All right.
Devang Thapliyal, are you ready for the Twitterverse section of the Ranveer Show?
Okay. Buckled up.
Before I start, I just want to tell the fans to be active on Twitter, to be a part of these podcasts. And if you've enjoyed it till this point, make sure you share it with all your friends. We will only grow through the listeners. Episodes like this don't get that many views, don't get that much interest, but it will once you start sharing, once you check out TRS clips for all the highlights of this episode. Let's get into the Twitterverse section. Okay. Okay. Divyang Chantbar asks of any ghost experience you've had in the Himalayas.
Oh, okay. This cannot be a short answer.
Go for it. No, go for it.
So, most of the times, the ghost is what our mind is not able to recognize as a human or an animal. And if it's not falling under that category, it becomes something supernatural, and that supernatural has been termed as ghost. So, I've had experience, not to myself, but I've heard stories from villages and villages around which was not justified. So I told myself, okay, I'm not gonna sleep inside. I'm gonna sleep outside. So at that particular night, I heard utensils falling, and my justification was, okay, it's because of the wind. So I left. I dropped the message to the other person, okay, you just be cautious around that area, and they already knew about it. So the person who was behind me, leading a team, he was sleeping out in the wilderness, like on the balcony. It was still wilderness, and he had this experience that someone came and slapped him. And I could not stop laughing. And I know this person really well in and out, and I know he wouldn't be joking. So yeah, that was one. That didn't happen to me, but it happened to him. The other one was in snow. When you're camping at snow, you can easily spot out someone who walked in and walked out because of the impression that you're gonna make on the snow. Now, this another guy who was telling me the same story around the same area where he could see one footsteps coming in, and he was having a tent mate beside him, his guide. And in the middle of the night, the guide asked him, okay, I need to go out and do this and that. And he was like, okay, you do what you want to do. So he went out, never came back. Later in the morning, he asked him, okay, what happened? They were like, I was never in your tent.
Wow.
So yeah, that sort of thing.
Have you, on any of your expeditions, have you felt like there's another presence walking with your troop?
It gives me goosebumps when I think about it, and I mostly think about it along the lines that it was an energy that was keeping us all motivated and not have any sort of fear. There was a hand that was safeguarding us.
Shiva energy?
I don't know. I don't know whether it was Shiva energy or any other energy, or because the land of the gods. But there was definitely something that I felt, and there was something that was walking along with us, just not seen. I couldn't see it, but could feel it, and it was just taking us along the lines. Okay, everything's gonna be all right. There was this good amount of motivation that the entire troop had. Okay, nothing's gonna happen, and this is only for good. Whatever it is only for good.
And you were in a dangerous situation or something?
We were not in a dangerous situation. We were just moving around the time when the sunset has happened. So it's not recommended to move around the time, but we were supposed to be at some place. And yeah, every sound that the jungle will make is gonna be, intensified, magnified. So this was this along with the team. The last one was when I was covering 10 kilometers stretch after the sunset by myself. I could constantly feel like there's someone following me, and looked back. There was no one around. I just kept moving forward. Later, I found out there was a lot of jackals. So there are a lot of them, and they have these red eyes, and then wolves around. Like they look like wolves, but they're not. So yeah, they were following me, and yeah.
Are wolves dangerous in the Himalayas?
Uh yes.
Have you seen any? Like in
No,
those-
no. I have seen like the wolves that I have seen. They have been not as huge as the one that we've seen in the movies. They are because of the latitude. They are much higher in the latitude, not in at the altitude.
But can they also attack human beings?
If they wish to, they will.
Harsha V asks, share one incident which brought a significant change in the way you look at the world from your adventures.
Yeah, that's what, like, every day above the ground is a good day. After coming close to, like, there's a constant debate about sensibility and desire because of the woman I was saving who was in my team who had a fall, and because of the gears that I had. With all those gears, I just jumped without giving a second thought.
You were climbing on the side
Yes,
of the
we
mountain.
were climbing on a ridge of a mountain. So if this is the mountain, we are climbing on this particular ridge, and we are tiny dots. So imagine us climbing, and one person just fell down, and I just jumped without giving it a second thought, trusting my abilities, my training, and everything. And with the I6, I was able to hold her, and then the other person from this bottom point came, ran, and stopped both of us. So that was one of the experience, and yeah, all these experiences taught me this one thing, that every day above the ground is a good day.
Vedant Kulkarni asks, what's the best thing that the Himalayas have taught you from all your adventures?
Yeah, it has taught me three things: to be fit in my body, that is important. If I'm not fit, then to carry all the tasks that I'm doing, it's gonna be a huge problem. A little bit on the journey of being wise day by day, where you don't want to, you have to do what you have to do. You're not doing things for pleasing someone. You're doing things to keep people safe and to justify your professionalism. And yeah, that is there. And being more alive
Appreciating life more.
a lot.
Sanjit Keswani from our team asks, how does one become a mountaineer in India? What's the process like?
Okay, I'm sure there are a lot of people who are listening to this. Get a pen and paper, or you have to repeat this video over and over again. So, look, Indian Mountaineering Federation, Indian Mountaineering Foundation is the authority that works in India, and within Indian Mountaineering Foundation, there are a lot of institutes that are working under the central government of India. These institutes are Nehru Institute of Mountaineering based at Uttarkashi. There is Jawahar Institute of Mountaineering based at Pahalgam. There is Himalayan Institute of HMI, Himalayan Mountaineering Institute, which is based close to Darjeeling. And there is National Institute of Mountaineering and Allied Sports, which is based in Dirang, Arunachal Pradesh. Now these four, they are centrally instituted. They come under the central government of India. There is one fifth one, which is called Atal Vajpayee Mountaineering Institute, AVIMS, Atal Vihari AVIMS. It is located in Manali, Himachal Pradesh, which comes under the state and the central authority both. Now, in order to be into mountaineering, you have to understand what is the basics of mountaineering, and given that, you have to earn an alpha, which is grade A, in all of these courses. So you go for a course which is known as basic mountaineering course in any of these four institutes. These courses are very, very expensive, but the subsidy has been provided by the government of India, and you can get these courses done for like a very minimal amount.
How much?
The time when I did it, it was for 5,000, but right now it has gone high up till 16,000, and the waiting time is way too much. So if you want to get this course done, irrespective you will have time or not, Just plan your year in such a way. Maybe you have to plan like 3 years ahead and just go and book the course. If you are not able to do it, maybe you'll get the refund, but go ahead and book the course if you are really interested in it. Once you go to the basic mountaineering course, a lot of doubts will get cleared. It's also important to know why you're doing these courses, just to have an idea about it. So that's how you can choose which institute you want to do this course with, because every institute provides its own specialization. So I did that from Kashmir. I really wanted to do it from there and to understand the dynamics as well. I was being asked to do it from Kashmir. I went there and वहाँ पे I did basic. You have to score grade A. Only then you're out to do an advanced mountaineering course. Once you do an advanced mountaineering course, your altitude's gonna go step up the game. You're gonna live at high altitude much longer than your basic mountaineering course. And between the time frame of basic mountaineering course and advanced mountaineering course, make sure that you're filling up your time by doing some adventure in the outdoors, by being in the mountains again. And there's a lot of endurance involved. So basic course done, then you do something, fill up your time with some adventure. The advanced course going to come in. An advanced course, a lot of bheed is gonna get out. There are a basic course, most of the time there are people from all walks of life who have no clue what it's like, and they just come enroll and they are the part of the herd. But in advanced course, there'll be more serious professionals. People would have climbed peaks, would have done things, and you would be along with these people, and you'll go through this advanced mountaineering course where you'll spend significant amount of time up high in the altitude. Once this is done, you'll go to search and rescue, which is again more streamlined. Now basic mountaineering course will happen like four batches in a year. This will happen 2 batches in a year. Search and rescue will happen once in 2 years or once in 1 year. So that's how it just keeps getting narrowed down the funnel.
Yeah, and then your actual experiences after that make you this
Yeah.
soldier mentality.
I mean, you will go through a lot in between these courses. A lot in terms of just building up your career and yourself, most of all.
Yeah, I think that's the joy of certain careers. I'd definitely say entrepreneurship is one. I'd say a career like yours is another, army is another, even acting is another, where the joy of it is truly finding yourself. That's the joy. It's not the fucking money, the fame, the recognition. It's always what's inside, going deeper within, finding your own questions. You don't even know you want to ask those questions. You'll find those through your work.
Yes, very much. You kind of become work magnet and money magnet, so it will follow. You don't have to look for it.
Yeah, and that's what a lot of people will be listening to this podcast till this point, asking themselves, why have you chosen a career like this, without understanding that the amount of self-discovery that Devang has had, that other entrepreneurs have had, just there's nothing that parallels that level of self-discovery that you can get through a job like this. And then therefore that self-discovery trickles out little bits of happiness and make your overall existence much happier.
Yeah.
So self-discovery gives you joy, and careers like this give you self-discovery.
Yes.
Not everyone's chasing that capitalistic career in life. Not everyone's chasing fame in life. We're sent on this. This is going on some other tangent. I was going to say we're sent on this planet to do things, but I will just move on to the next question. Keshav Jindal asks, can you discuss something related to mythological exploration or anything related to Ramayana or Mahabharata in the Himalayas that you've seen, heard, whatever? Do you have any stories like that?
Yeah, so there's this peak known as Swarga Rohini. They say when Pandavas were to take the walk to Swarg, they had to go across that peak and go to the...
This is ahead of Rishikesh, no?
Yes. Like,
because I have a friend
yes.
who has a story about this peak.
Yes.
So I'll tell you my friend's story.
Yes.
I'm answering the question for you.
Yeah.
He's an affluent person. We'll probably have him on the podcast at some point. It's a long trek up to that place from Rishikesh. Long, I think it's like a 10
From
15
Rishikesh, you have to go like 10 hours deep down to that village road, and then you start.
At that final destination of the trek, there is some sort of a lake where they say magical experiences happen. And you see things that you're supposed to see and that you take back with you. That's what he had told me.
Yeah, there's this lake called Ruinsara Lake on that particular destined path, just a little bit of deviation. And yeah, so that's one, that's Swarga Rohini. Say there's a step, walk to heaven.
Yeah, but go on. Like, what's your...
Yeah, that is it. I haven't climbed that peak yet. So yeah, I don't know whether it's gonna be heaven out there or hell, but every mountain top is a heaven for me. Along the lines, the mountains, like there's a highest Lord Shiva temple in a place called Chandrashila Tungnath. So yeah, being there at that particular altitude where Shiva was meditating once, and all these places are like they are there because there is a reason to it. You know, like Lord Shiva doing his prayers, or Pandavas having some sort of a connect with them. Like one of these stories is ki, the Pandavas were lost and they had to find water. So once they were finding water, uh, Yudhishthir asked someone to go and look for water. He found water, but then the water god asked few questions that he had to answer, and if he wouldn't answer, then he'll just faint out there. So
This was Yamraj.
yes, Yamraj was
In the
asking
form of that lake avatar.
Yeah,
he was
exactly.
controlling that lake, and he told
and
them
the lake is called Devrata Lake. It's on the there's this peak called Chokamba. You can see that peak very big, huge, enormous from there in that particular trek. And along the same trails, you will go up to the mountains, which is called Tungnath, which is again the highest Lord Shiva temple. So they were lost, and then the questions were being asked, and there were questions like, "What is black? More black than what is darker than black?" Or something like that. Like it was asked in Hindi. So he couldn't answer. There were 5 questions like these which were being asked, and they couldn't answer. But then Yudhishthir came or Nakul came. One of them came.
the story is that I think they sent Bhim and Arjun to look for water.
Yes, you're right.
They went to the lake, and before they could take water from the lake, the deity of the lake
Yeah.
went and said, "No, before you take my water, answer questions, then I'll allow you to take it. Otherwise, you drink it and you'll die." So they were like, "Who are you? We are the great warriors, the Pandavas." They had it out of arrogance, and one by one, all fainted except for Yudhishthir, who was at the campsite. And finally, Yudhishthir, in search for them, he came to the lake. And he began to answer those riddles and questions, and he answered it accurately.
Yes.
And if you actually study the Mahabharata, they say that Yudhishthir is Yamraj's son. They say that Kunti and Madhu had prayed to different gods for sons with different abilities.
Okay.
So the first eldest son, Kunti had prayed to Yamraj for. And that was Yudhishthir.
Okay.
So technically, Yamraj gifted Yudhishthir to Kunti. And therefore, Yamraj, who's Yudhishthir's father, met him as a deity of that lake.
And asked him the questions.
And asked him a question. And Yudhishthir answered it accurately. So he said,
and then he revived.
Yeah.
And got the water as well.
Yeah. As a boon, take the water and you can have your brothers back also.
Yeah. This lake is Devrata Lake. It's in Uttarakhand. It's very close to the village called Sari. And this route leads. It's also very famous for rhododendron.
What?
Rhododendron is a flower. It's the state flower. And the juice being extracted out of it, which is very good for your heart. So, and this entire century, it'll have a lot of birds. So, if anyone is a bird watcher, you can go around that century and look for birds.
Have you seen that lake?
Yes.
Is there some different energy about
it? It feels good to be there. It's a very happy vibe. Yeah, I took my brother first time. My brother is a nerd, so he has been studying quite a lot. And I really wanted him to have a hike with me. We got lost at one point of time, and then we found out a way. So he was very scared, but we found out that water place, and we were like, he was so happy after looking at that water. Okay, water is there, that means you can camp around the place. We were lost around like 4:35 and we had no shelter, nothing. So I was like, okay, don't freak out. Like, I was thinking he was along the same levels as mine, but me being stupid, I was safeguarding him. Okay, nothing's gonna go wrong, I have a lot of food for you and all this and that. But he was like, okay, but there's no one around, there are no people around. I'm like, okay, don't worry, let's just go forward. I know. So we went forward and found that lake, and the happiness that I saw at his face was something that I'll never forget in my life. He saw that lake, he saw water, he saw people around there. I'm like, wow, okay, we can camp over here. And I'm like, yeah, perfect.
You said that this place had a positive vibe. Have you ever seen places in the Himalayas which had a very negative vibe?
Most of the time, it depends on the circumstances.
Okay.
Yeah, what is actually going on? What's the backstory of that place?
But nature by itself will never be negative.
No. Never.
Yeah. I hear you, man.
So yeah, there are a lot of stories. I'm sorry to not answer this question.
No, it's all good.
Appropriately, because I am not that much into
Mythology.
mythological side of it.
Yeah, that's fine, man. If you want any kind of Indian history, Indian mythology, all that stuff, you check out the podcast we've done with Devdutt Patnaik, Amish Tripathi. If you want aliens and Himalaya secrets, this is the right podcast for you. Next question is from Ranveer Allahbadia because there's no more fun questions, or we've answered all of them already.
Okay.
In all your adventures, what's the most beautiful place you've seen, and describe it?
Of all the places that I've been, all the mountains that I've traversed, all the peaks that I've climbed, no matter what, Kashmir, Great Lakes, also that that place is very close to my heart because of a lot of things that happened over the time when I was serving in Kashmir. Kashmir, Great Lakes is one of those places where it's beautiful word is not describing Kashmir. Kashmir is describing the world beautiful. It's that amazing. Those grasslands, those meadows. It's an amazing hike. Once you enter the territory, all you can see is color green spread across as far as you can see. These are grasslands which are huge, and then there are lakes. Now one of those lakes is Gutsar Lake. I don't know what is there. There are mixed sort of vibes, and I like it when it's mixed sort of vibes because it was always good vibes. Only once I heard this story about there's an octopus who lives inside of that lake, and it comes up like one of the hands comes out and it grabs animals and goes down again. I don't know why I was in that zone to even hear that story, but yeah, it was been told by one of the shepherds who lives around that valley. He plays flute, and I just go there during the Kashmir Great Lake. This entire trek on the fourth day, this lake will arrive. Sit there and just absorb sun while I'm looking at this lake, which is pristine blue. There's a mountain. It's covered from three sides. There's a mountain on one side. There's this green meadow. On the place that I'm sitting, there are rocks, all of it. So I'm sitting in one of the rocks, and there's this lake which has a glacier which is hanging behind it. That when I say it's a hanging glacier, it means that it looks like it's hanging, but it's been there for years and years and it's stuck there like a Fevikwik. It's stuck there, and in the middle of the lake there's this glacier which is there, so it looks like there's a cake, blueberry sort of, and then there's this icing done on the top of it. So it's that beautiful, and then that glacier is moving because of the water is constantly moving. So that lake, that glacier mass of ice is also moving. So it's that beautiful, and on a clear day, when it's sunny, you can see the blue sky, and because of the reflection is the blue water, the mountains around green, and then the green meadow will also have flowers, and that's my most beautiful place that I've ever seen. I would never shy away from going Kashmir over and over and over again, doing that trek. I will never get bored. There have been a lot of incidents that bring back a lot of memories, but I cherish all those memories, even if they were bad or good. They are always good for me because of the valley. So Kashmir Great Lakes and all what I've witnessed around it. It's huge. It's massive. There are phenomena where you will hear water, but you will not see river because the water is flowing underneath. And
under the ground.
Yes.
Wow.
So all of these incidents makes Kashmir Great Lakes just amazing. I've met amazing people out there. Bond made there are still there intact. So all in and out Kashmir it is.
You have like 10 more podcasts in you, man. But
Kashmir Great Lakes.
I hear you.
Yeah.
You've got 10 more podcasts in you for sure. We'll have you back on the Ranveer Show at some point in the future. Maybe when you've had even more experiences and you have more to share with the world. What I'd request of audiences is, if you know someone like Devang, we are on the search for people like this who have experiences beyond cities, experiences in the outdoors, adventurers, just these miscellaneous people. They're the most fascinating stories. They're the most fascinating conversations. My brother. Thank you for being on the Ranveer Show for the second time.
Yeah.
I highly recommend that the listeners check out the Hindi podcast we did with Devang, and that's extremely intense. But for now, Devang bhai.
Yeah, before we wind this up, just one request. Whenever you go to the mountains, just make sure you only leave your footprints out there and no carbon waste. This is something that the Himalayas are dealing with. There's a lot of plastic that's coming up, and it's not going back because there is no management, no services like we have in cities like these. So if you are taking any sort of plastic, just one request, bring it back.
Beautiful. That was the signing off note. Make sure you like, make sure you share, make sure. I think you guys are subscribed and you all are following us on Spotify. But thank you guys. This was a lovely episode. Thank you, brother.
Thank you. Namaste.
So that was our episode with Devang Thapliyal. We're actually releasing it 2 to 3 months after we've recorded the episode. And there hasn't been a single day in these 2 to 3 months where I haven't thought of this particular episode. And now that you've heard all of it, you know why. This is a piece that I enjoyed creating. Since the first time I met Devang Thapliyal at the Claw headquarters in Auroville when I'd gone to meet Major Vivek Jacob and his team, I looked at Devang and I thought to myself that this guy has to be on our podcast. I'm looking forward to bringing him back on the show because I'm sure that even within the course of 6 months to a year, he'd have seen so much more of life, so many more adventures, so much more storytelling that would have been formed within this man's mind. I'm blessed to call this person a friend. I'm blessed to hear his story and I'm blessed to bring it out to you guys. Whenever I hear Joe Rogan's podcast, the Joe Rogan Experience, firstly, he's a huge inspiration for me. But secondly, his best episodes are episodes with adventurers. And I'm glad that Indian audiences are gravitating towards these episodes with adventurers, with outdoorsmen. Because the joy of podcasting isn't just about how to make money, how to self-improve. The joy is diving into someone else's experiences. And if the experiences are this rich, that joy becomes 10x. If you enjoyed this episode, make sure you hit that thumbs up button. Make sure you share this episode with your friends. Tell people that Indian content creators are now creating content like this. Spread the word about the Ranveer Show. And make sure you follow us on Spotify. Every episode's available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world. Do tell us on our social media handles about all the other adventurers that you know of that you would like to see featured on the Ranveer Show. If you can help us get in touch with some of these adventures, write into us, comment on our Instagram, send us mails, and keep following the Ranveer Show.